to a new Doctor Who podcast, the New Who Review. We will be doing classic and current Who episodes. The beginning of An Unearthly Child. With me today is Connor.
Hello.
And Alexis.
Hello.
Connor, if you would, read off the synopsis for this episode.
Sure. Barbara Wright and Ian Chesterton, two humble teachers during 1963, are surprised by a bright student named Susan Foreman. Feeling inquisitive of her upbringing, they seek out her residence to learn who nurtured such a genius. There, they discover a junkyard inhabited by her grandfather, simply known as the Doctor, and he doesn't want them lurking about. When the teachers refuse to leave, they discover that an ordinary police box is actually bigger on the inside. The Doctor decides they know too much about his and Susan's otherworldly origins and takes them on a journey across space and time in his TARDIS, the place he and Susan now call home.
All right. So here we have the beginning here, where we have the start out in the schoolyard.
Yep, the infamous scene.
Coal Hill School. I'm sorry?
The infamous scene with the policeman.
The infamous scene with the policeman, yes. The walkthrough.
Yeah, that's the very start.
And we see the I Am Foreman doors. Very iconic in Doctor Who now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was also in the 50th.
Yes, they did bring it back for the 50th anniversary. What are your thoughts on Ian and Barbara, Alexis?
Not really sure. I mean, they're kind of different. They almost seem like they're like Ian seems kind of self-centered. He doesn't want to believe things that the Doctor's saying. And then Barbara just kind of seems amazed by all of it, but doesn't really say much about it.
Connor?
I quite like Ian and Barbara. They're my favourite classic companions because they're both right at the beginning. They're both like the image of a companion in the classic era, particularly Hartnell's. I think they're both strong characters. Ian, they're both intelligent. Like they're helpful towards Susan, and sometimes the Doctor. But the Doctor sometimes is quite distant with them, and he's quite how do you describe it? He doesn't approve of them as much as. Like nowadays, we'd see the Doctor approve of a companion, but they're quite intelligent. They're their own two people. They can stand on their own 2 feet,
Yeah.
and they're both helpful to the plot, like in their own ways. So yeah, I think they're strong characters.
Yeah, and with Ian, it seems like he doesn't really want to listen to what the Doctor has to say some of the time because he just doesn't believe it. He doesn't think that a lot of this stuff is possible, but eventually just kind of gives into it.
And what about their interaction with Susan? Do you think they're
just being
in the right spot, or do you think they're kind of pushing on her?
They're being just the typical teachers, aren't they? They're trying to. They're focused on her welfare. Like, is she safe?
Yeah, they're like curious to see if she's safe, what she's up to, that kind of thing.
Right, but I mean, they kind of are questioning on her though, why she's so odd, right? That kind of bring that in, or?
Yeah, I think they're just being nosy and inquisitive and curious because from the scenes, because in the beginning when they were in the car outside the junkyard gates, we saw a few flashbacks of moments in the classroom where Susan was being at her most oddest, and she had the intelligence. Like, she was showing off the intelligence, wasn't she? She was obviously more intelligent than maybe even Ian and Barbara were. She was calling the experiment in science stupid and too easy. And even she was like saying when she was given the French Revolution book by Barbara that, oh, well, that's wrong. You know, so there was obviously something different about her that became apparent at the very beginning. So yeah.
Now, Alexis, this was your first time watching this episode, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you think? Now, after all this, they're in the TARDIS, and Ian's making his comments about the TARDIS. How well do you think his interpretation of what was going on was? How bigger on the inside, how he went around it, and that.
He didn't like things to be unexplained, so he seemed to just kind of not like the idea of it, but he still wanted to figure out what it was all about, like how it was possible, because he had to himself disproved it.
Connor?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. This isn't my first time. I've seen it a few times, so I'm probably more familiar with the story. And yeah, I'm probably like, I can tell what the characters are like because I've seen other episodes from their kind of tenure in the show. The Susans, Ian and Barbara's, and then William Hartnell's himself. So I think Ian was he was a bit shocked because obviously in 1963 the technology that would have been in the TARDIS would have been far more advanced than they would have ever seen in their whole entire lives. So I think the fact that Ian was being disbelieving of it wasn't maybe that bad a thing. It was just showing like, yeah, we are in 1963. This isn't normal. We're not used to seeing in any generation it's probably not normal. I mean, even now if you see a police box that's bigger on the inside than the outside, you're not exactly going to think it's real, are you? So yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing that he was disbelieving of it. It added a bit to the plot, to the relationship at the beginning between the Doctor, Ian and Barbara. Although Barbara was much more keen to believe what the Doctor was saying than Ian was.
Yeah, she seemed more like amazed by it than Ian was, because Ian was more like kind of rejecting it.
Yeah.
All right, so then the TARDIS takes off. Now, compared to today's effects, how well did you consider that? I mean, it was for 1963. I thought it was fairly well, but what about
Yeah,
you
it was
guys?
pretty good.
Yeah.
You could see the TARDIS shaking, couldn't you? You could see Ian and Barbara being knocked unconscious because it was weird for them. It wasn't at all normal. I think it was probably a bit dramatic. Like, I remember when I watched it a few days ago, I said to Charles after, there were points where I thought that the acting was a bit overreacted. Like, particularly with Susan. In the last few parts. But yeah, but I do think it was well done. I mean, I'm not going to criticize it. It's
right. How about you, Alexis?
I'm not really sure. I think a lot of the earlier episodes might have been a bit more dramatic with the acting, but I hadn't really noticed, to be honest.
Yeah, there's just a few points with Susan, You know, she just kind of it's kind of like that straight talk. You know, she's just kind of saying the line, and it's not like a reactive. You know, it's she's the one point where she's oh grandfather, and it's when they're and don't do that, and I don't know, but I agree. Just a little bit over the top, but it's good. I like the way they did the in and out effect, and then it fades into the opening credit scene of the waves, and then it goes into the squirrel. All right, and then they land in 100,000 BC.
Which was the original name of the episode during production until it was changed.
Yes, it was. And let's see here. What's the first thing the Doctor mentions about the TARDIS, Connor?
It was about being in two dimensions, wasn't it? It wasn't in the same dimension.
Right, but when he lands and they come out, it's still the police box.
Oh yeah, he says that the chameleon circuit's been broken and that it's very, very disturbing.
Yeah, he says, why hasn't it changed?
Right. Well,
yeah.
I don't know what it might have changed into, maybe a rock, but...
or a tree, or a cave or something.
Yeah, which would have been interesting. So then they get wandering around, and they catch up with these cavemen people. Oh, we have... who we got here? We got...
Well, at the end of the first episode, we see a shadow of a caveman, don't we? And the TARDIS in the distance.
Right.
And the wasteland.
So then we meet, let's see here, Cal and Za, who are the two main antagonists, protagonists. They always call him an enemy, but I don't think he's an enemy because he's just kind of going on his own instincts.
Well, they're both conflictive to each other, aren't they, Cal and Za? They don't really like each other, which we'll cover earlier in the end, obviously, because in the end there's a major fight between them, isn't there? So...
Right. So what do they want from the Doctor? They capture the Doctor, bring him to their cave, and what do they want, Alexis?
They want him to make a fire, just kind of make fire with his hands, as they had said.
Right, because they see him make fire from his hands using those matches to light his pipe, and so they think he has this magic to make fire with his hands. All right. So Ian and Barbara and Susan start looking for him. They end up getting captured too.
Yep.
That kind of goes in and out of them being captured or whatever, and
they get thrown into the cave of skulls.
Then they get thrown in that cave of skulls. Now there's the one character, the old lady there. She doesn't want him to give him the fire.
Yeah, because she'll think that the fire will cause destruction and pain and death. So she almost sees it as a curse in a way. So yeah.
Which kind of it does for the old lady, I guess. I mean, in the action of them trying to get him to get the fire, she's killed.
Yep, for letting the Doctor, Susan, Ian and Barbara go.
As they're trying to get back to the TARDIS, they're followed by the I think it was Za,
Zar and his wife, who I can't remember the name of.
Was she given a name in the episode? I don't really remember.
I think it was her.
Yeah, I think her name. Yeah, her name. I
Yeah,
believe.
her. H-U-R. Yeah, it was. It was her.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And he's attacked by an unknown animal. I think it's meant to be a tiger, isn't it? Because it sounds a bit like a tiger.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a saber-toothed tiger or something. Now, in that they help him. Should they have helped him?
Well, it certainly gained Zar's trust. So maybe it was a good thing, because it would have helped them escape in the end.
Right.
Zar could have easily have killed them, but because he helped them, and because I think it was it Ian that called himself friend.
Yeah, that was Ian.
Yeah, so that they understood that he was just helping them, and he wasn't trying to kill them, or he wasn't from another tribe from across the mountain.
Yeah, and when they were talking to each other, like the cave people were talking to each other, they were saying like that he was like, I'm not really sure how they worded it, but that he was acting more kind.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the words they used. I don't really remember exactly what they said, but yeah.
And Alexis, do you think they should have saved him? Do you think it would have been better to not save them and get to the TARDIS? Maybe they would have left earlier?
I'm not really sure. Yeah, I don't really know.
Okay.
I mean, they probably would have gotten there faster, but I mean, it makes it a bit more eventful by having them save them. So.
Right. Which, like Connor said, leads it to where he uses that with Za to let him. Well, really, Za says he's going to let him go, but he really doesn't end up letting him go, does he?
No, because they get captured again, and they're back to square one.
Right.
You know,
Ian ends up giving him fire by rubbing the two sticks together with the leaves
Mm-hmm.
in the cave there. And then
Zar comes in and gives them water.
right.
And then they go into the and then, well, first of all, they're outside the TARDIS because they put Zar on a stretcher, and they take him towards TARDIS, and they're nearly there, but they're ambushed by loads of cavemen who are hiding behind the rocks, and
Right.
they all gather around them, ready to kill them, and
Her.
Cal starts blaming Zar for killing the old woman in the cave.
Right.
But the doctor checks both their knives, Cal's and Zar's, and they find out that Zar's is not got any blood on it, but Cal's has got blood on it.
Right.
So then the doctor identifies Cal as the killer.
Right.
And
kind of like a TARDIS CSI there.
yeah, and then they shoo. He tells the rest of the tribe to shoo Cal away, never to return, which obviously is wrong because he later returns, and Cal and Zar fight, and in the end, Zar kills Cal with a rock to the head. It's quite a dramatic scene, isn't it?
Yeah, he gets him pretty good on that one.
Yeah.
Gotta
When
be
you can
very
see all the
skilled
faces.
to do that.
When you can see William, when you can see the doctor, Ian, Susan and Barbara's faces in between each scene of the fight. It's quite dramatic that way.
Yeah. Because of that, with the Rock, Alexis, that was slated to be a kids show right off the bat. That for that time, too graphic, too much violence.
Depends on like what they mean for a specific like kids show. What do they mean by like the like who's it aimed towards specifically? Is it like young kids? Is it well? It would depend. Like if you're aiming the show towards like younger kids, it might be, but I don't know.
I believe it was school age kids. I don't believe like high school age. I believe it was school age kids.
Well, yeah, I figured that.
Connor,
I wasn't sure.
would you say that, Connor? Not really high school age kids, but more primary school type.
Yeah, because Sidney Newman originally thought it to be an educational show, something that would teach kids history, as it was. And it
like keeping it as it was wouldn't really be like it wouldn't be too graphic then.
Well,
like,
cavemen were believed to be pretty violent people. I mean, they'd hunt, wouldn't they? They'd kill.
Yeah, and they're not showing like the entirety of how violent they would be. So I guess like that would have been like toning it down for that.
Well, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think they toned it down an awful lot. And I mean, one death isn't going to hurt anyone, is it? Really, to be honest. And plus, you didn't see any blood. Yeah, there wasn't. It wasn't particularly gory. It was just a big blow to the head, and he died. That was it.
Yeah, and the extent of any goriness there might have been would be when I forget who it was. One of them had their chest cut, like, and it was all bloody.
Yeah, that was Tsar by the Tiger, which was when they took him on the stretcher to the TARDIS and got caught, and they found out that Cal was the killer of the old woman and not Tsar.
Charlie, you still there?
And after the events in the cave with the fight and the death of Cal, they find a cunning way to escape with the stick, the piece of meat, the fire, and the skull on top to create something that'll scare the cavemen.
Mm-hmm.
And then they make 4 of them to replace each member of the Doctor's party, and yeah, then they escape back to the TARDIS. And that's pretty much how the story goes.
Mm-hmm.
What are your overall thoughts on the show? Being a first-time watcher, Alexis.
I'd say it was a pretty good start to the series with the first part of it. I think it kind of showed the whole idea of like kind of giving you the basics of the show, but some of it I don't know if it was like the best start with like the last 2 parts of it, but it was still really good for starting out the show, I think.
How well did it compare? Not a great comparison, but compared to like the new Who that you watched with the latest series, how well do you think it adds up?
Well, I didn't like the story as much in Series 7, so I could probably compare it to something else, but I still think it was... I
mean, do you think
it doesn't quite match up to it, because that's kind of hard to compare like 50 years apart.
Right.
So I'm not really sure.
Connor, your feelings on the episode as a whole?
I thought it was a solid start. It was. I'm not going to complain about it. It wasn't particularly adventurous in the sense of what we had later on in the other Doctors and the most recent New Who. I think if it was made today, it would have flopped. It wouldn't have been successful at all. But at the time, it was a pretty good episode. It was a good 4-part. The writing was pretty good. I quite like the characters. All the characters were likable. They all had the different qualities. I mean, Cal was evil. At heart, he had bad intentions. Zar he wanted to be leader. He was confident. He just wanted what was best for the tribe. And then the old woman was doubting of everyone, of the fire situation. I particularly liked. I thought William Hartnell's performance was the best overall. I think he was mysterious. He was the old grandpa figure that the Doctor was at the time. So yeah, I think the actor
Yeah,
of the
Hartnell definitely did a fantastic job at that.
yeah, it was a solid script. I mean, it was a good episode. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, being a solid actor like Hartnell was, I mean, he's a seasoned actor coming into this, having lots of movies under his having done, and you know, I can remember when I watched this for the first time, I enjoyed it greatly. I mean, I hadn't even watched a lot of Doctor Who before that, and then I had watched this, and I loved it. And then this week, watching it again, loved the episode. Great episode. I think it goes great with the New Who. I think it goes right along with it. Obviously, it's like special effects and things like that are better now than they were then. But you know, story-wise, I think it matches up just as good. All right. Let's see. Do we want to do a rating, or do we want to just?
Yeah, if you want to do a rating,
All right. How would you rate it?
I'll give this a 7 out of 10. Thought it was solid. There wasn't an amazing amount of plot compared to what we got later, as I said. The characters were likable. They were real life. They were 3-dimensional. They weren't 1-dimensional figurines. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Alexis?
I'd probably give it about the same. Okay, I'm hearing myself echoing. Okay, so yeah, I'd probably rate it about the same as Connor had said. It was a great start, I'd say, for the series.
Yeah, I too would give it like about an 8, almost a 9. I think there's some episodes coming up there a little better than even this episode, but I think it's a solid episode that that's lasted now 51 years now. So I think it's great.
I haven't seen much of Classic, but I'd say it's still one of the favorites of what I've seen.
All right. Well, then I'd like to thank Connor and Alexis for joining me for this episode.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you for coming, and we'll be doing another one next week. We'll also be doing the New Who for season 8 with starring Peter Capaldi. So until the next episode, thank you for listening and watching.